How important was the role of the United States and particularly the events of September the 11th in the final settlement of the peace process?
I think it was extremely important. I think there were two phases where the United States played a part. Firstly, the Clinton administration, bringing Gerry Adams over, giving him his visa against the wishes of John Major's government. But, that had a positive spin-off in the sense that it was an important staging post in bringing Sinn Féin in from the cold, and that was very, very important. The second play by the United States, which was important, was, ironically, during the Bush administration, when Mitchell Reese, who was Bush's last Northern Ireland envoy, played a key role in persuading the NPSL's Democratic Unionists to join the Park-Sharing coalition headed up with them in Sinn Féin. Reese actually fought tooth and nail with both the British and Irish governments, and he had the backing of Bush in this, to ensure that if Sinn Féin got into government with the DUP, that they would sign up to support the police in Northern Ireland, that they would join the policing board, that they would support the rule of law. Now, that was a revolutionary change for Republicans. I mean, it cannot be stressed enough how important that is in terms of accepting the legitimacy of the state. So that's where America played two key roles, ironically. Firstly, by helping Sinn Féin, and secondly, by helping the DUP.
Do you think that the peaceful resolution of Northern Ireland provides hope for Britain's struggle today against Islamist terrorism?
I very much doubt it to an extent. I mean, clearly, Islamist terrorism is different from Republican terrorism. Republican terrorism, at the end of the day, came to an end because the people directing it were rationalists. They came to a conclusion they couldn't win. They could not realise the goal, and they had to go for something less. The goals of Islamist terrorism, the extreme groups, is maximalist in its nature. It would be a mistake to compare Al-Qaeda to the IRA. It's just not the case. The IRA, at the end of the day, ended up taking a very rational, cold political look at the reality around them and ended the war. That I can't see that being the same for Al-Qaeda. But who knows? Who knows in the future? Maybe other leaders will emerge.
One of the reasons that you think that a united Ireland is really a distant prospect is the Celtic Tiger economy in the south. Of course, that's slightly changed now because of the global banking crisis. Do you think that the current financial problems makes it more likely that there'll be a united Ireland?
Well, actually, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, the southern establishment, if you like, the southern political establishment, are less focused on Northern Ireland than they have been for a very long time. I mean, Bertie Ahern poured a lot of energy into getting this incredible historic compromise between nationalism and unionism in the north. But his predecessor, I understand, isn't. I mean, he wants obviously Sinn Féin and the DUP to be sitting down together in government, clearly. But there is less enthusiasm for them to have grand projects that are going to sort of fuse the two halves of the island. And in fact, with resources dwindling and money getting tight in things like the Irish budget, the grand projects to sort of unify Ireland via economic stealth, if you like, are going to be a long way off. I'm not saying it's inevitable it won't happen. It may happen, indeed. Some people say it's already happening, but at the minute there doesn't seem to be very much traction for pushing towards fusing these two states together. They're two very different economies. Northern Ireland, something like 60% of the economy is in the public sector. The Republic, on the other hand, is a neoliberal free market economy, which at present is in freefall.
Your book and its conclusions may be a bit unpalatable for some sympathisers of the IRA. How do you expect the book to be received in Ireland? Well,
I just felt that I had to do it because that it needed to be said. These truths need to be said. That it's a fiction to say this was a score draw. It wasn't. Republican goals were not attained. That doesn't exonerate from 1 minute, and I want to stress that in the book, the role of the British state in prolonging the troubles, the role of unionist politicians, and how they wind up the loyalist paramilitaries. All these actors have had a part to play in this tragedy. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it should be looked at in the round. I mean, and it isn't the only book saying this at the minute. I mean, Ed Maloney's masterpiece, The Secret History of the IRA, said very much the same thing. So I'm not sort of a lone voice here in the wilderness. There's other people, including people that were in the organisation, who agree with the same conclusion.
Henry MacDonald, many thanks. And Henry's book, Gunsmoke and Mirrors, How Sinn Féin Dressed Up Defeat as Victory, is published by Gill and Macmillan. Phil Maynard and Tim Mabey produced today's edition of Guardian Daily. I'm John Dennis. Thank you for listening.